The home I grew up in is now the house of murder. Every family photo taken at our home is ruined. I see photos of us on the front porch near the front door. That's where we would have barbecues, sit at the fire pit, have a beer, listening to the cicadas, and making homemade ice cream. That's the door where my dad's bound and murdered body lay. I see photos of the living room and entryway in our family photos. That's where he struggled with his murder. That's where they knocked him to the ground and hog-tied him and murdered him. I can never ever see my family photos again without this being the first thing that I think and feel. The night before our house became the house of murder, my dad was going to sleep to rise early to drive down to the boot heel of Missouri, to the farm on which he grew up, to move his mother, my grandma Melinda Allen, into our home to care for her. He never made it. She is another victim of this murder. At age 89, she died of a broken heart a few months after he was murdered, which is to say, she committed suicide. Melinda's heart was so crushed, and last March, she decided she no longer wanted to live. She stopped eating. Eventually, she did die on March 19th, with her only remaining son, Jeff, and her daughter-in-law, Debbie, sitting by her side. I will never again be able to visit my grandma, Melinda, on the family farm in the Missouri Boot Hill. I will never again be able to visit my mom and dad in their home. I will never be able to visit my maternal grandma, Gaynell, in her home, which was near my parents' house, to help her in her garden. And this was my favorite thing to do. Both my grandma Gaynell and my mother have had to abandon their homes out of fear and trauma. The official cause of my dad's death is asphyxiation from neck compression. Last night, Monday, September 18th, 2017, at 5 p.m., I spoke on the phone with Dr. Gershom Norfleet, the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy on my dad and wrote the report. He said the following to me, and I have the audio. The reason this occurred is because someone applied pressure to your father's neck. There were patchy areas of hemorrhage present in deeper soft tissues. This type of hemorrhage occurs when there is some kind of external force, something suggestive of a wrestling move, like putting the victim's neck within the elbow, coming around and crunching and squeezing off the oxygen. Dr. Norfleet told me last night that no one involved in this murder case contacted him regarding my dad's autopsy report. No one asked for any kind of clarification of the cause of death, which is asphyxiation from neck compression. It's not about anyone sitting on his back. I have to live with terrible questions. How much violence was there? How much pain did my dad endure? My dad experienced abject terror in his final moments before death he knew was coming. Did he die slowly and fully aware of it? Or did he die immediately from the chokehold one of you put on him? Did you choke him after you tied him up, or right when you burst through the front door? From the moment you entered our front door, my dad probably knew it was the end. How long did it take his life to drain away? I have to carry those questions and those images in my heart for the rest of my life, knowing I may never have the answers. Felony murder is when a death occurs during the commission of a felony. If they had not committed the felony of burglary against my dad, and if they had not lawfully restrained my dad or put a chokehold on his neck, he would be alive today and we wouldn't be having this nightmare. When you put the chokehold on my dad, what is it that you intended to do to him? My grandma Melinda Allen would be living with my dad in that house today, and she too is dead as a result of this. Your acts are no accident. There is nothing involuntary about crushing an elderly man's neck until he dies. I have to live with the knowledge that my dad died alone, no loved ones with him to hold his hand or to comfort him in his journey into death. Instead, the last people he saw were these vile sociopaths, career criminals bent on terrorizing and murdering. My dad did not deserve that. He tried to help these people. He was a probation and parole officer and a drug and alcohol abuse counselor. All my life, I remember him giving so much of his time and energy helping people who were down and out and used substances to help them feel better. I watched him do this all of my life. A friend and colleague of Dad's recently said to me that some of the people my dad helped, none of the professional community thought these people could be helped or deserved help. And yet my dad selflessly stepped up. He would say, "Not on my watch." I hated watching my dad do that. My dad had a big, huge heart, and I watched his heart and generosity so often get used and abused time and time again. And yet he would go on and turn the other cheek. He has had more than a few success stories in helping people, not only in this county, but surrounding counties as well. People who were suffering, whom he helped, who went on to pick themselves up and became successes. Some of them became good friends of his and our family. He worked to heal the people around him and protect those who could not protect themselves. He would not have wanted dangerous, remorseless killers back in the community he spent his life serving. My dad knew the defendants. The defendants knew my dad. And they knew he would identify them as the perpetrators. Their killing him was the only way they could hope to not get identified for it all by my dad the very next day. I have to live leading up to his murder. After he filed the lawsuit against the Sheriff's Department and the Prosecuting Attorney's Office and Franklin County, he was receiving harassing phone calls at all hours of the day and night. So much so that he had to get a new phone number. Cars with tinted windows and no license plates were driving in and out of his driveway and driving around his office in Union. He was sleeping with a gun under his pillow. Your Honor, I have to live with bearing the unbearable. The possibility that my dad's killers might be back on the streets in less than 10 years, despite their long string of offenses, despite their utter disregard for the suffering of another human being, is beyond belief. How do I bear the unbearable? I ask the court to help me bear the unbearable by giving my family what justice you can. Reject the plea bargain and send these brutal murderers to judgment like they do. Thank you, God.